Welcome, everyone, to It's a Wrap with Rap. I am your host, Ron Rappaport. This podcast features people who have overcome life's challenges and adversities, people who can inspire and motivate, and people who can educate us on an assortment of topics. My guest today is Frank Rivera. Frank was diagnosed with sarcoidosis in 2011 after being misdiagnosed with lung cancer for 7 years prior to that. He also lives with IBS, Sjögren's syndrome, and Parkinson's disease. Frank has become disabled as a result of these conditions and was told in 2018 that his condition was terminal. Still, he remains incredibly active in the sarcoidosis and rare disease communities. In order to support others living with this disease, Frank founded Sarcoidosis of Long Island in 2012. Since then, he has been an active local, state, and federal advocate for sarcoidosis. Frank strives to raise awareness nationally, specifically focusing on the government sector. He has represented the rare disease and sarcoidosis communities as a speaker at 2 congressional briefings and appeared on NBC Nightly News in 2018 to discuss right to try legislation. He shares his experience through his personal blog, My Life as a Rare Disease Patient, and is an author of 2 books, Walking in Silent Pain and I Have Sarcoidosis, But It Doesn't Have Me. Frank's mission is to promote awareness and education about sarcoidosis and to ensure that all sarcoidosis patients know they are not alone. Welcome, Frank, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, we are certainly happy to have you here on this important subject. Frank, tell us a little bit about yourself and your life before knowing about sarcoidosis.
Okay. I was born and raised on Long Island, New York. And then I was a runner. I ran in high school. I ran in college, got a scholarship in college. I broke 4 minutes in a mile.
Wow.
Yeah. And I ran a marathon in like 2:30. I only ran it once.
I ran a half marathon and I probably ran it in 2:30. So you're doing really good.
I ran the New York Marathon once, right after, it's after my junior year in college. And my coach wasn't too happy about me doing it because I still had another year left.
Yeah.
And he thought I could have hurt myself, but I really wanted to do it, so I did. And I don't think I'd ever do it again, but it was good. It was fun when it was.
Once is enough, right?
Yeah, it definitely was. So yeah, until 2000, I ended up moving down to Florida because my mom was sick. And she ended up passing away in October of 2001. And so I ended up staying down there. And I have a daughter who's now 19. So she was born in 2002. And so that was another reason why I stayed down there. And her mother and her ended up moving to Oklahoma, but I stayed in Florida for about a year and a half after. But then what happened was I found out that I was working at a medical plant, and they sold medical supplies.
Yeah.
And I was one of the salespeople, but in the back was a warehouse, and they were cleaning supply. Like they would get the old supplies back, and what they would do is they would clean them and then they donate the old supplies, fix them, make sure they were working in working condition, and they would donate them to people who couldn't afford to buy, the oxygens and and the wheelchairs and stuff like that. So when they were doing that, they didn't have the right ventilation. So I was up front, and they were using some really heavy duty chemicals.
Yeah.
Very, very,
very not good.
Chemical. Yeah. So within a month of working there, I went out one morning to go do my run. I usually was running 5 to 10 miles a day at that point. And I made it about a quarter of a mile and didn't get any, I just had to stop. It was terrible. I felt like I couldn't take another breath. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
And then getting heart palpitations because of it. And I ended up calling at the time, my girlfriend at the time, and she had to pick me up. We went right to the hospital within a month, they did a biopsy because they found masses. They took a X-ray and they saw the white masses in my lungs, and so they went and did a biopsy, and they told me I had lung cancer.
Wow.
So here I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah.
So they decided to do chemo and radiation because it was in all the lobes of my lungs. So it wasn't like they could really do a surgery. I would have to get a whole full lung transplant.
Right.
So they did the 4 years of chemo and radiation. And then I moved to Oklahoma to be with my daughter for a year. And then I moved back to New York, because I met my wife, now wife.
Right.
And 2011, I have IBS as well. And one of the things that my stomach started acting up. So went to the hospital and they did a X-ray of my abdomen area, and they saw the bottom lobes of my lungs and said, you have masses in your lungs again. So I thought it came back. They told me I was in remission.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, here we go again. I'm going to have to go through all this again. And so they ended up doing a biopsy, and the biopsy showed sarcoidosis. And it's kind of weird because my brother-in-law actually has sarcoidosis.
Oh, wow. That is a coincidence.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's a rare disease. So only 200,000 in the whole United States have it. And I happen to know somebody who does. But the thing is, his was caught early enough. So he went into remission. One of the things about sarcoidosis, if it's caught early enough, they say about 75% of the patients will go into remission with prednisone. They take prednisone and then they go into remission. So I'm thinking when they told me that, I'm thinking, oh, okay. So I take some prednisone, get it over with, I'll be fine. Well, I started to get pains in other areas. I was having trouble with I had neurosarc, so it's in my brain, and I was having memory lapses. I was getting dizzy, and then the really bad part was in my bones and in my joints. So it's like it's rheumatoid arthritis on steroids, basically. It hurts. Every day I'm living with a 6 to 7 pain on the scale of 1 to 10 every day. That's my normal.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah. Frank, let's start off with you explaining to our audience exactly what sarcoidosis is, the symptoms, and the causes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to give you the easiest form of how to know what sarcoidosis is it's overactive white blood cells. Something has to activate. And they found out it's environmental. It's, like I said, the chemicals that I was around. It's heavy dusts. It's mold. It's insecticides. So when you get that, inhale that. That's how it starts to react to that, and that's how it is. But what sarcoidosis is your white blood cells go to fight a disease. Like everybody, when they get a cold, white blood cells fight it and fight off the cold. Well, mine go to fight it off, but instead of fighting it off, they form masses, and it can be anywhere in your body.
Wow.
Literally from head to toe and your skin. So it can be anywhere in your body. So, but
these masses, for our audience, they're not cancerous.
No, they're not cancerous at all.
Okay.
What happens is they're actually called granulomas.
Okay.
And, that's what they call them, but in layman's terms, they're masses. So,
right.
So, and the problem is they calcify and they get hard and they harden. So, like if you have it in your lungs, 90% of the people who get diagnosed get it in their lungs first. So, people get what they call fibrosis, which is scarring in your lungs due to the masses, because you can't get rid of them.
Right.
It's not something like you can go and operate and take them out. Because usually when it happens fast, and then it happens in a lot of places in your lungs.
Yeah.
It attacks really quickly because it's your white blood cells.
Yeah.
Like I said, the basic causes, all they know is environmental. They really don't have like a genetic cause yet. They think it's genetic, but they don't have the gene.
Right.
So it's as of right now, they say they don't have a cause. They just knows what excites it, and that's the chemical.
Okay. So maybe down the line with genomic testing and all the new genes that they're coming up with, somewhere in the future they might know. Frank, what factors can increase your risk? In other words, age, sex, race, does any of that play into it?
Well, actually, it's really kind of interesting because in the United States, African American women have sarcoidosis more than any other. There are almost like 37%.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's almost, and then African American men are second. And so, but the thing is, like I said, it's environmental. So what they're figuring out is where everybody is living.
Yeah.
It's more of where people are starting to live, because like there's more people in like Georgia, Alabama, this eastern southern states are getting it. Louisiana too, from Louisiana on down, Florida, they seem to have the higher concentrates, except for New York now because of 9/11, when they were cleaning up with all those heavy dust, and they were told they didn't have to wear masks. So a lot of them are actually just finding out now that they have it. And like I said earlier, that Mount Sinai Hospital is the biggest sarcoidosis clinic in the world. In 2001, they had 1,500 sarcoidosis patients. They have over 20,000 now.
That's just unbelievable, that spike like that.
Yeah,
Frank,
exactly.
can you tell us about the complications and long-term problems? For example, other organs that are affected by this?
Yeah. Like I was saying, that 70%, if you get it caught within the first year, you can take the prednisone, and odds are you will go in remission. It doesn't mean you will never get it again. It just means that it goes in remission. Like my brother-in-law has it, and he got it in the 1990s, and he's only had one flare-up since then. And he had prednisone, and he was fine.
How long do you have to take the prednisone though?
Usually a month. It's usually like it's usually like 3 to 4 weeks. They do a high dose, and then they work your way down.
Okay.
You can taper, as I say, taper it down.
Yeah.
Because you can't stop prednisone all at
No,
once.
no, right.
Yeah. So, but then there is the chronic, the 30% of us that don't get diagnosed early. Right. And the problem with that is that this disease is called a disease of exclusion, meaning they exclude all the other diseases before they actually get to your disease, and they figure it out that it is sarcoidosis. So it's it's hard to get it caught in that first year.
Right.
So it can, like I said, it can attack every organ in the body, including your skin. Now, of course, the three major areas that they worry about is the lungs, the neurological, and then of course the cardiac shock. Because if it gets into your heart and it calcifies in your heart, stops your heart from beating.
Yeah, you've got real problems then.
Yes, and usually the problem with that is that most people don't know they have it in their heart until they die. Wow. Because it's not like you're not going to go in and take a biopsy of somebody's heart.
Right.
So, and there's no perfect way to find out that it's in your heart. Like, I mean, they do an MRI, and sometimes it shows, sometimes it doesn't.
Right. You can't tell all the time from imaging. Tell us about your diagnosis odyssey and your other medical issues that arose that nearly killed you. I think we're talking around 2011, 2012.
Yeah, 2012. Well, I've had 8 surgeries. A lot of them are abdomen related. But I mean, it started in 2011 was the first one, and that was a gallbladder. And then I had a colon resection, and they took out about 1.5 feet of my colon. And then, unfortunately, I had a really bad one. I had problems. I couldn't even get up out of bed. My brother-in-law and my wife had to carry me down the stairs. And I went to the hospital and they told me that I had, first they said, we can't find anything. I'm like, what do you mean? I know I'm in pain.
That's the worst thing. That's the worst thing they can tell you.
Yeah. And so they did a CT scan, they did an X-ray, but they didn't do an MRI. So finally, I'm like, I can't go home like this. There's no way. So the emergency room doctor's like, all right, you know what we'll do? We'll just try an MRI and see if we find anything. They do the MRI and they come back to me and they're like, you have air. You have free air. I'm like, what? You have a hole in your colon. I'm like, okay, I knew something was up.
Right.
So they rushed me into surgery. Well, while they told my wife it was going to be about 4 to 6 hours surgery. 6 hours passed and nobody came out. And then somebody did come out about 6 hours and told her, might as well call his family. We're not sure if he's going to make it through the surgery. And the reason was they found sepsis in almost every part of my body. Wow. By the time they caught it. What happened is, and why they caught it so late was because I was on such high prednisone.
Yeah.
That it hid the inflammation.
Oh.
So CT didn't show any inflammation because the prednisone was hiding it. So it was masking my inflammation. So that's why they didn't see it. So the MRI, the only reason they caught it is because it was contrast, and the contrast was going into my body.
Right.
So so that was like on a Sunday night. I went in 7:30 Monday morning. I was in the hospital. In surgery, and then they, I think it was like 8 or 9 hours worth of, and with like 4 different doctors, surgeons in there. They were telling me. I don't remember because I was put in a induced coma.
Yeah.
And all the way up until Thursday, and I was on a machine. I was on a ventilator. So I don't remember anything from Monday to Thursday.
Probably the best that you don't.
Yes, exactly. Because my wife was laughing at me because she said I did wake up, and I was trying to talk to her, and of course I couldn't talk because I had the tube in my mouth. And then so they gave me a pad to write things down.
Yeah.
And they said it was chicken scratch because I showed it to me on Thursday. They were like, look. And I'm like, and I was getting mad because they didn't understand what I was trying to tell them.
Sure.
So I was getting mad at them. So it was like the big joke, running joke. But the doctor, when they took out the ventilator tube, when I did wake up, and I smiled, and he's like, "Do you realize what you just went through? And you're smiling?" I said, "Well, what's the alternative?"
Exactly.
I'm awake. I'm alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Frank,
everybody knows me as a smiler.
Yeah, you are. Frank, how did you handle the news that the cancer diagnosis and treatment were all for naught? How did you handle it? How did you process that?
That took me a little while. I really took. That's what I went to. I kind of went to Mount Sinai to get answers and how that could have happened. And the one thing that the pulmonary doctor did tell me is that the chemo actually did help me because it didn't let the masses grow any bigger than they were.
Okay.
So in that respect, the chemo helped. The radiation really took its toll on me. That's the one they said that really hurt me. I was down to 95, 98, 95 pounds.
Yeah, you were telling me that offline.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was about 130-ish, 135, I guess I was around that time before that. So at first, of course, you think about suing and blah, blah, blah. And then that's when my doctor was like, there's 2 things about this. And she was like, I am not telling you not to sue. She's like, but here's what they're gonna tell you. The chemo did help. So that's one thing they're gonna push that. The second thing is, do you really want to go down to Florida and fight this thing? Because you're sick you're really sick. By the time I got diagnosed, I had it in 75% of my body. And they're like, so do you want to concentrate on getting, fighting this disease, or do you want to concentrate on fighting, a court battle and getting,
Right.
Stress is terrible for any kind of disease.
Sure.
And especially when your white blood cells are involved, stress accelerates your white blood cells.
Yeah. Yeah. So I agree with her. Describe your battle with sarcoidosis to our audience, both physically and mentally. What's that battle like?
Yeah, it's been a tough up and down. I call it a roller coaster, of course. That I've always been, if I got sick, because I was sick as a child, I had lymphoma, and so from the ages 5 to 9, I didn't even go to school. So half of kindergarten all the way up into the half of 4th grade, I didn't go to school. So I was always fighting as a child, and my mom was sick, so she was like my model of like what I needed to do to fight for this. And the original battle was, all right, now that I know what it is, what are we going to do about it? And then when I was like, I started reading up, and I tried to contact people. There wasn't enough people to talk to about this disease. So I really had a hard time mentally. It really, it was taking its toll on me mentally, because you go from, like I said, I was a runner, and I broke 4 minutes, and then all of a sudden I was running 5 to 10 miles, and then all of a sudden I couldn't even walk a quarter mile.
Yeah.
So I mean, that on itself took its toll. And then in 2014, it got so bad that I had to go on disability. It got into my bones and my joints, and the arthritis aspect of it is probably the worst part of it for me right now. I've tried so many different medicines, and I don't know what it is. My body will take the medicine for 6 months and do it okay, but then it would stop. I got it, like they would say, and I grow immune to the medicine.
Right.
So it's been like I said, a rough battle. But then in 2015, like I said, I pretty much, by that time, I tried almost every basic medicine that they could. They're not really medicines for sarcoidosis. They're medicines for arthritis, or medicines for your lungs, Symbicort, which
So
is really
they're treating you
symptoms.
Symptomatically, in other words.
Yeah. So because there's 2 approved drugs for sarcoidosis. One is prednisone, which is a killer in itself.
Right.
Really, the side effects to that can kill you as well. And then the other is this, what it just got approved just recently, is Actar gel, and that hasn't had full testing, but it's been approved. But in 2015, it got to the point, the pain, I couldn't even get out of bed. And I talk about this, actually, I wrote 2 books, and like you said, and
we're going to get to that.
I talked about this in there, that in 2015, I got to the point where I couldn't get out of bed. I was told that none of the medicines are working for me, and I thought about committing suicide. I thought about it so much that I had it planned out.
So that was pretty much rock bottom.
Oh yeah, and I made one last call before I did, because I have I speak to a counselor. I have the same counselor from just before I got diagnosed with sarcoidosis, because I was still having some troubles trying to figure out what it was. And and I knew it was messing with me mentally, because I wasn't able to do things that I was normally able to do. So I was like, I need to talk to somebody. So I had a counselor. So my last call was to my counselor, and she actually put something in my head that really made sense to me. She's like, do you really want to kill yourself? And I'm like, I was thinking, yes. She goes, no, really, do you want to? Why would you have called me? She's like,
Yeah.
If you wanted to do it, you would have done it.
They say that most people want to really do that to get out of pain.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I was in so much pain.
Yeah.
So what we did is I actually put myself into the hospital for a 72-hour watch, which is a psychiatric watch.
Yeah.
And it's changed my whole outlook on things.
Good.
So it actually made me go towards helping people more mentally as well, because I knew what I was going through. If I was going through it, and the one thing that people don't see, and I always talk about this, is I'm sure you probably heard the song Tears of a Clown.
Yeah.
You know how you're always smiling.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, if you're in this pain and when you're by yourself, you're crying or whatever, you know. So that was my mantra. I was always the tears of the clown. And to everybody else, I was always so strong. And they always like, how could you want to commit suicide? You're always the happy, you know, guy. I'm like, well, you ever see Robin Williams? He was really happy.
All the comedians, yeah.
Yeah, all these comedians that pass away or that kill themselves. And I'm like, so that's something that I actually veered toward. And I started talking to people. And because first of all, when people think about mental health, men don't want to go see a counselor. They think they're supposed to be the strong. You always taught you're the strong one. You're the rock of the family.
Right. But actually, it takes more courage to do it.
Yes, that's what I say. I say you're strong when you ask for help.
Yeah. You're not strong when you're just, afraid to do something. Yes, I agree. Exactly. Frank, can you tell us about your outlook on life and your life's theory?
Well, now my outlook is I started my own organization, Sarcoidosis Long Island, and then last year I opened up a national organization called Stronger Than Sarcoidosis.
Okay.
And reason being is I wanted patients to be able to talk to a patient. There is another national organization called Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research, and they do a great job. They've grown in the 10 years that I've known that they've been around. They're around 20 years. But they were so small when I first got there. There were like 3 people working out of a office.
Yeah.
And now they have like 8 and they're hiring 4 more. But none of them actually have sarcoidosis. So it's hard for them. And so they have to contact ambassadors like myself.
Sure.
And then have us talk to them. So I wanted to cut out the middle person and try to, you can talk to us with it's patients for patients.
Right.
And that's what my Sarcoidosis Long Island was basically about as well, is to everything I've done. I've done 3 5K races. I've done 5 walks. I've done restaurants and stuff, movies and all this other stuff. Everything I do is always for the patient. Everything I think about doing is always for the patient. And I always say it's not for me, it's for the patients. Because like, ask my wife, she could tell you, I run myself to the ground.
Oh, I know you do. I know you do.
And then I'll crash. And my wife gets mad at me. I'm getting better at it now. I'm getting better at pacing.
Well, Frank,
yeah.
How do you advocate? You do all this advocating when you're personally dealing with this illness. How do you get through that?
It's actually given me purpose.
Okay.
It's given me purpose because I'm not the one who can sit around the house and do nothing. And so taking that, was like I said, I had to go to disability, and taking that was just so hard. It's as they say, your manhood. You grow up. One of the part of things you grow up is you get married and you're the breadwinner, or
right.
I had to put too much pressure on my wife because disability doesn't pay.
Yeah.
So it felt like it's so much pressure. So I think it's really, it's still hard. I still have bouts of where I'm going back and forth. But the reason I advocate is if I can help one person a day, then I feel like I've done something.
I agree.
That's my goal every day.
Yeah.
It's just if I could touch one person, whether it be on social media, whether it be, from one of my events or from me speaking in front of the camera. Because it's funny, I hated speaking in front of cameras. I used to hide.
Yeah, me too. I
did.
do advocacy work for another rare disease, male breast cancer.
Yes.
And guys really don't want to come out with that one. They
Yeah.
feel embarrassed and all, the stigma, but we can't, our guys in our group, we came out and we advocate for it. And just like you, we're doing amazing things to make it, people where you say I have male breast cancer and people say, okay, yeah, I know what that is, but it's one person at a time.
Yeah.
It's tough, but
Yeah.
you're a hero, man. You really are. What would you consider are some of your biggest and best accomplishments so far?
Well, I'm going to tell you one that a lot of people wouldn't even think of. We did do an event. It was the Brooklyn Cyclones. They were a minor league baseball team for the Mets.
Okay.
And they called me up one day, wanted to see because they were having special days for not just rare disease, but for any nonprofits. So they asked me if I wanted to do one for my nonprofit, and I'm like, sure. I said, but I want to change it a little bit. I don't want it to be about me, because they were like, well, you can. What'll happen is you'll go into the clubhouse and get to meet the players. Edgardo Alfonso was the manager, the ex-Mets baseball player, and which I'm a big fan. I'm a big Mets fan, so it was, to me, that would have been cool. But they were like, you get to go there, and then you get to throw the first pitch out, and you also, they talk to you, they put you on the big screen, the whole deal. I said, how about this? There's a girl that her name is Hannah, who lives in New York as well, and she's, at the time, she was 13. I think, yeah, she was 13, and she has sarcoidosis. So can you imagine being in that much pain as a child?
Yeah.
And having to deal with that, because she has it neurologically as well as arthritis. So I was like, how about we do it for her? Let her go out there and throw the first pitch.
What a
Let her
gesture.
go out there and meet the player.
Yeah.
And she did. At first, she was like, kind of scared about it. And I don't know about doing this. And then she had a blast. The players, first of all, she's 13, so she's like, oh, look at these guys. Wow, they're so handsome. And they're putting their arms around her, and she's loving that. And then she got to throw the first pitch, and they told her to move up in front of the mound. She could have threw it from the mound. She threw a strike, perfect strike.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I did go out to the mound, because she was afraid to go out to the mound by herself. So I went to the mound with her, but everything was for her. She got a shirt with a name on the back, and she got to play with the mascot, the whole deal. So, and then why it was a great event to me, after it was all over, she came running up to me, gave me this huge hug, and just told me, I love you. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm done.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Frank. We know where your heart is. Absolutely.
I mean, I've had personal accomplishments. I've gotten accommodation from President Obama at the time. I had accommodation from Senator Schumer, and Senator Schumer actually sent my story. When they were going for Obamacare, when they were trying to vote it down, and John McCain put his thumb down.
Yeah.
That night, I was actually in Washington, and I was on vacation. And I wanted to show my daughter Washington, D.C., because she's never been there, even though I was going back and forth. And I got a call from the health advisor and said that, can you speak to the media? And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. I'm like, I'm on vacation, but I guess so. But then he was like, I'll get back to you. We want to see when the vote is, because we would like you to speak after the vote. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, the vote didn't happen till 1:30 in the morning. So that, needless to say, that didn't happen. But I got a call at 1:30 in the morning from his health advisor. Did you watch what was going on? I said, yeah, of course I did. I mean, it was my life.
Sure.
And I was in the hotel room. My wife and my daughter are sleeping, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, yeah. She was like, I need to tell you something. I didn't know about this until about 10 minutes ago. Senator Schumer sent my story to all the senators.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and then he sent it to McCain, Senator McCain, and he put there, read his story. This is from one maverick to another. Did you know how Senator McCain always was a maverick?
Yeah.
That's what his nickname was. And so she was like, you made a difference. You made a difference in your life. So I actually got to meet Senator McCain before he passed away. And he said he remembers that. And he said that he did remember that on the floor, and how he said, we can't, if we have nothing to back up what would happen to somebody like me.
Yeah.
So he's like, so you can think about, you made a huge difference.
You sure did. You sure
and
did.
I was like, so it kind of caught me off guard.
What is your advice for people out there struggling and perhaps at rock bottom? What can you tell them from your experience?
First of all, you're not alone. There's always somebody to talk to. If it's mental, there's always this suicide hotline to help you. There's also, if you go on to our website, it's actually my cell phone's on there. I do that on purpose. I've gotten calls from at all different times, and but it's because I would want somebody to be there for me, and so I will try my best to be there. If I don't answer, I answer usually really quick. But I just don't want somebody to think they're alone. You're not alone. There's 200,000 people in the United States alone.
Yeah.
And one thing I did, we were talking about the African American, the population.
Yeah.
One thing why I said it was weird is because in Europe, the population that has sarcoidosis the most in Europe is Scandinavian.
Really?
I mean, you can't get too much difference than Scandinavian.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's why I said you really have to see where they're living.
Yeah. Environmental.
Yeah.
Can you give us some quick advice for the caretakers out there dealing with a poor prediction of outcome?
I always say it's not a death sentence. My sarcoidosis specialist told me this the very first day I went to his office. He goes, you're not going to hear this from any other doctor. He said, fighting a rare disease is 90% mental and 10% physical.
Boy, I hear that all the time.
Yeah, he's like, not many doctors will admit it because they put less emphasis on themselves, and a lot of them are too big on their head. He always says for them to say that. But if your mind gives up, you give up. He goes, there's no medicine I can give you.
Right.
If your mind gives up, I could give you the best medicine, the best cure, but your body is given up. So that's the whole thing. You have to want to fight, and take rest when you need it. Your body is going to dictate. Sarcoidosis is called the snowflake disease because no two people have the same symptoms. So you have to listen to your own body, and don't because it is an invisible disease. Don't let those doubters get in your mind.
Right.
Because I get told probably about 10 times a day, but you look fine. Yeah, it hurts inside. Of course, I look fine on the outside.
Yeah.
But don't let the doubters. I mean, I've had family members that have doubted me at times, and until they saw what I went through and seen what I've gone through, then it opens up their eyes to see it. But don't let them. You have to worry about yourself. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say no.
Right. Frank, what role did your faith play in dealing with all the ups and downs?
I totally believe. I've prayed many times. I've really, I think I, one of my best friends passed away recently from sarcoidosis. I call him my brother. And
Absolutely, he is.
yeah, he was my brother. Him and I talk to each other at least once a week. He lived in Louisiana, and he passed away October, somewhere around there, September, October, and he like he was really one who helped me out and try to clear my mind spiritually as well. And he told me, one of the things he told me that really stuck in my mind is like, you're here for a reason. And he goes, I really believe you haven't fulfilled your reason. He's like, you know, he's like, one thing about me, I'm not really one to take compliments well, like, because I don't want to, I'm not in it just for
You're a
me.
humble guy. You're a humble
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah, and I'm not in it for me. I'm a realist. I know probably in my lifetime there probably won't be a cure. But as long as I leave this world in better place than it was, then I know I did something, I achieved something, and I'm okay with that. But so he always told me, and like he called me from the ICU. I was one of his last phone calls.
Wow.
And he outright said to me, he's like, he goes, I'm passing the torch to you, because he had it for like 30 years, 40 years. And he's like, he said, I'm passing the torch because you have so much more to give. And he's like, I know, he goes, I know in your brain, you're always thinking of something new, different to do, and try to raise awareness.
You there, Frank?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, looks like we might have got cut off from the bandwidth or whatever. Let me just. Sometimes this happens.
Yep.
Okay. So he said you were
Yeah,
on
I
this
was here
earth
for more.
to do more.
In 2018, I was the one that was told I only had months to live. So I never thought I was going to be the last of the three amigos. But he always said, no, you're going to be, you have more. You have so much more to give. You think you gave a lot, but you have so much more to give. So I really believe that I'm here for a reason, because if you would have asked me probably about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I would be advocate or running a nonprofit, I would have laughed at you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I used to own my own businesses, but I like helping people, but I never thought about it this way.
Right. Tell us about the books you wrote, Walking in Silent Pain, and I have sarcoidosis, but it doesn't have me. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The Walking in Silent Pain I wrote first because it tells you who I am and how I got here. Like I said, at the age of 5, I had lymphoma, and I had to deal with that. I don't remember a lot of it. I think my brain kind of try to forget about it, and then things are starting to come back to me now. And but I like I said, I didn't go to kindergarten, half a kindergarten, and then I didn't go back to school until 4th grade. And then when I went back to school, they were like, we can't put him in 4th grade. He didn't go to 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. So my mother's like, test him. Do a test and see where he belongs. I did a test, and they put me in 5th grade.
Wow.
And I'm like, I didn't
you didn't lose any steps there.
No, my brothers were really good. I started out reading I was a big sport. I still am a big sports fan. I would read the sports pages. of the newspaper. And then my mom ended up buying the World Book encyclopedias. Remember how they back in the day, the World Book encyclopedias?
Yeah.
She got the I think it was like the 1972 edition. I'm dating myself here, but I started reading them, and by the time I went back to school, I read from A to Z.
Wow.
And my brothers would help me if I didn't understand the word. My brother would read it with me and go over it. One of my brothers 3 years older than I am, so he, and so by the time I took the test, I really, I had more than enough knowledge. I ended up going back into 4th grade because one of my brothers is a year older than I am, and I was in the same grade as him, and he didn't like that too much.
Yeah. Hey, Frank, what excites you? What excites you going forward in your advocacy work?
It's great to see when strides are being made.
Okay.
And like I said, 10 years ago, you could, the one organization had 4 people, 3 or 4 people. And then it's not just that, it's just seeing like we didn't have, now we have 2 drugs that are, put up as, for sarcoidosis. Then you're seeing all these clinical trials. When I first started, there was 3 clinical trials on clinicaltrial.gov. Now there's over 100 for sarcoidosis alone. So,
that's progress.
Yeah, and you get to see it. Like a lot of people that have the disease don't see it because they don't investigate or look into it. So I like to let people know that, there's some other rare diseases that are ahead of us, of course, but we're making strides. We're getting somewhere. Because we couldn't have a cause, we couldn't even get what they call animal model. You couldn't give the animal sarcoidosis. In Austria last year, they did.
Well, Frank, you know what you're doing. You're giving people hope.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I just want people to realize it's not a death sentence.
Right.
It doesn't have to be.
Frank, how can people contact you?
Well, they can either go on to strongerthansarcoidosis.org or sarcoidosisofli.org. Those are the easiest way because they can find me right on those pages, or my email, they can email me at fjr311@gmail.com.
Okay.
And that's the easiest one to email me at. But yeah, and then like I said, my cell phone number is on my webpage. That's how much,
And that's Stronger Than Sarcoidosis.
Yes. .org or sarcoidosis of li.org.
Sarcoidosis.
I still have both of them working.
li.org.
Yes.
I'm going to include that information in the podcast notes.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Frank, for coming on the podcast and sharing your personal story. And thank you for all you're doing to help others. You are touching lives every day in a most positive way, and you are an inspiration to all of us. I know I speak for everyone in the audience and myself that we wish you nothing but good health and good fortune for you and your organization going forward. For people out there, comments and suggestions, you can email me at itsarapwithrap@gmail.com. Our website is itsarapwithrap.com. You can drop your email address there, get on our mailing list. We have a Facebook page. We have a Facebook group. It's a Rap with Rap. That group is growing very nicely. We're on Instagram. It's a Rap with Rap podcast. YouTube, all the episodes are on It's a Rap with Rap, the podcast uncut. Thanks everyone for listening. Everyone, please stay safe out there. And for now, it's a wrap.